Welcome to Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's
house. What's up, Shaq Housers? How y'all doing? It's your boy Shaq House here. Hope you're doing good. Hope your week went well. Saturday, I was at Baltimore Comic-Con. Yeah. First time I've been to a con in 7 years, folks. It felt good being around all my fellow freaks and geeks and nerds, taking pictures of people doing cosplay, getting new comics. Oh my goodness, it was a fun day for me. Anywho, today this video is another similar power comparison. Yeah, somebody in the comments in my last video suggested I should do Bishop, and that's what you're gonna get today. Bishop, the mutant cop from the future, but with a twist. We're going to compare him to Skullfire, his counterpart from the X-Men of 2099. Check it out!
Both Bishop and Skullfire are from alternate branching timelines roughly 100 years from now. Bishop hailing from Earth 1191, while Skullfire is from the year 2099 of Earth 428. In Bishop's timeline, he was a member of the XSE, the Xavier Security Enforcers, mutant cops basically. They're a mutant law enforcement agency inspired by the X-Men. And Bishop is a trained police officer skilled in homicidal investigations, and he has many years of armed and unarmed combat training, and he's a superb marksman. Skullfire, he was a member of the X-Men of 2099. But the one thing they have in common, they're both energy-related mutants with similar abilities. Let's start with Bishop. Bishop has the mutant ability to absorb various forms of energy upon contact. Once internalized, the energy is normally metabolized into his personal reserves. Energy stored in his body boosts his natural physical vitality, amplifying his strength, endurance, and reaction time. But despite his enhanced physical build, Bishop's energized strength level easily exceeds a few thousand pounds when fully charged. Physical exertion, however, depletes his additional energy, and he can also release his reserves in the bioconcussive blasts generated from his hands. He also occasionally employs plasma rifles and guns, which have special conductive grips allowing him to focus his energy into the guns as a power source, using up less energy than his actual blasts do. In his early appearances in this timeline, Bishop demonstrated the power to redirect energy in the same state that he had absorbed it in. For example, he could absorb Storm's lightning and then fire electrical blasts of his own. Bishop was apparently capable of using his personal reserves as raw fuel to feed any energy that he was redirecting. In the example with Storm, this meant that he could fire multiple electrical blasts, far more energy than the single lightning bolt that he was struck with, by tapping into energies that he had previously stored to continue recharging the electrical energy for his use. He can also absorb most kinds of energy, including kinetic, electromagnetic, and psionic, but his system works best with active and directed energy signatures like bioblasts, laser guns, or electrical power lines. From ambient radiation, sunlight, and even static electricity, he picks up little to any charge from those sort of passive energies. He also cannot fully overcome solid-based kinetic assaults. Pure kinetic energy blasts or concussive explosions he can adjust to. He can absorb some of the kinetic energy from projectile assaults like bullets or crossbow bolts, but not enough to prevent them from penetrating his flesh. He's also still vulnerable to blunt force trauma or pressure-based attacks. He also had a bionic right arm which amplifies his strength and contains retractable wire-guided pincers and enabled time travel, but now he's back to his regular natural state. Skullfire. Skullfire's mutation grants him energy rechanneling powers which grew considerably over time. He can actively absorb energy out of his environment, such as draining nearby electrical systems to drive their power. When fully charged with energy, he took on the appearance of a glowing green radiograph, X-raying his body to give a glimpse of his skeleton. Initially, his power acted as an instinctive response that triggered uncontrollably, often in response to stress or threatening situations. He would drain all available power from his surroundings, conduct the charge through his body, and release it from his hands or in any direction as raw explosive concussive energy, capable of incinerating a human being or doing significant structural damage. With training, he learned to control the various aspects of his mutant power. such as absorbing energy at will from chosen sources, storing energy instead of automatically releasing it, and modulating the intensity of his released energy. Later, it became apparent that Skullfire, he seemed to be an energy-based life form who was simply clinging on to his flesh and blood body out of habit. Because after he was killed and subsequently reanimated, he managed to reassert his free will and return to normal life, though he now constantly glowed with excess energy. He also demonstrated a sensitivity to energy sources, allowing him to mentally pinpoint hidden power sources and draw upon a wider range of different energy signatures. Ultimately, his body was destroyed, leaving him as a non-corporeal sphere of living energy. Eventually, he managed to reform himself into an indistinctive humanoid form, a rough silhouette made of pure green-colored energy. And he can now draw upon ambient energy in the atmosphere and redirect it to his will, as well as being virtually capable of intangibility and flight. Both mutants basically absorb and rechannel energy. While Bishop is probably the most standard of the two when it comes to energy redirection, as he can absorb most kinds of energy, including kinetic, electromagnetic, and psionic. I mean, yeah, his system works best with active and directed energy signatures like bioblasts and laser guns and electrical power lines, as we stated before. But like we said, he's not able to overcome solid base kinetic assaults. A punch, a bullet, or a crossbow, they can still harm him physically, even though he can still absorb the kinetic energy from those blows. And he can still be vulnerable to blunt force trauma, like being choked to death, for example. Now, Skullfire, his powers, they started off as an electrical energy siphon. Unlike Bishop, he didn't need to wait for someone to shoot at him first. Yeah, Skullfire, he can actively drain nearby electrical systems or generators in order to power up. And he didn't seem capable of absorbing non-electromagnetic energies during his lifetime. But after his physical body was destroyed, he demonstrated a wide variety of new energy manipulation abilities when he was reborn as living energy. However, this happened at the very end of the 2099 X-Men run, so those abilities, they weren't fully chronicled. But between the two of them, Bishop and Skullfire gets the win. Yeah, Bishop's power automatically absorbs any energy he comes into contact with, but it's up to him on whether or not to absorb it, to store it, use it, or give himself an increase in strength or fire an energy blast. Skullfire, once he became an actual energy manipulator, once his power evolved, I would imagine that him warping Bishop's energy would be child's play once he drew upon it and put it under his control. So Skullfire, he's the better energy absorber and rechanneler. Alright, that's what I got for this week, and now I'm going to tell you what I'm doing next week. Next week, it'll be another similar mutant powers. Strong Guy versus Sebastian Shaw. Tune in then, Shack Houses, to what I got then. Have a good week. Later.
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!
Yeah.